The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello everybody, welcome to our webinar today. This is Lanai Bain, and we've also got Shane Brown on the line as well. Just wanted to welcome everybody. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to join us. We're going to go through a quick webinar with you guys. We're going to outline some best practices for backing up Novell infrastructures. Kind of going to have two parts to the webinar today. We're going to start out with a quick slideshow just to kind of give everybody an overview of, SEP, who we are, what we do, some of the platforms we support, some of the things that we're, that kind of make us a little bit different as far as backup solutions go. And then after that, we're going to go into a live demo. We're going to have a little question and answer session in between the slideshow and the demo, and then we'll answer some more questions after we do the live demo. So if you guys come up with any questions along the way, please jot them down. On the right-hand console for the GoToWebinar portion, you can go ahead and just type your questions in where it says questions, and we will answer them when we get to that point. So, Shane, I will go ahead and let you get started with the slideshow, and we can get going.
Thank you, sir. And welcome to the Novell Best Practices Disaster Recovery. I will actually let Lanai give a brief history on where we came from and where we're going to.
So SEP was started in Germany in 1983, and the company originally was actually a production automation company. We wrote software for production and automation in large warehouses. So we were commissioned by a couple of our current customers at the time, IKEA and Alcatel, to write some custom code to back up some of their mission-critical data in some of their warehouses. Over a couple of years, that product developed, and we kept working at it, and eventually the decision was made to take that product to market. So the company is split. There is still a SEP in Germany which does production automation software, and now we are the backup portion of that SEP software. And in 1996, the product was completely rewritten from the ground up. It was introduced into the U.S. market in 2004, and we are continuing to gain quite a bit of momentum very quickly. Go ahead, Shane. So I think next we're going to talk about some of the platforms we support and some of the different operating systems and just kind of how we integrate into different infrastructures. This slide you can see now just really highlights our wide range of products that we support. And we work with a lot of companies that have very heterogeneous environments, and we're able to go in there and help them standardize their approach to backup. We find that a lot of customers have more than one solution in place to meet their backup needs. They may have one product that backs up virtual machines. They might have another product for Windows. They may have another product for Linux or Novell. And so instead of using 3 or 4 different products with SEP, they can bring everything under one roof. They have one central management console, and they're really able to standardize, cut their training costs, get everybody up to speed on one platform, and it enables people to, in larger organizations, enterprise organizations, it allows people from different departments to have access to other departments where they previously may not have had access. So if a Windows administrator is out sick for a day, and a restore needs to be done in their department, the the Novell guy or the Linux guy or the Oracle guy or somebody else can go in and do a restore because they're used to using the same product for backing up their department as well. So I'll go ahead and turn it over to Shane, and I'll talk a little bit more about some of the product integration and some of the other products we support.
And we'll go into some details here, but I think you are doing a great job covering everything. So, yeah, let's get into some of the details. This is a partial list of the products we do support. It talks about some of the operating systems. Of course, we have application support that we do with APIs or agents and database modules. And then we also have hypervisor environmental pieces that we have quite a bit of support for. And we'll go into those details as we definitely have some unique capabilities and functionality in both those areas. The server itself, especially just for a base setup, is pretty small. You don't need to have a huge server. It's pretty optimized software, and you can actually build out the server with just 1 to 2 gigs of memory. You do have to have some Java. You have to have some Java on any of the operating systems that you're going to be running the GUI on. So if you have a client that you just want to run GUI to access the server, you'll need some Java there, or Java 1.6. And then, of course, the server itself has a database, stores the information for the objects and schedules. That database is going to stay really small. About 50 gigs tops is what we see that database growing to. And the hardware that we talk to, you're going to need more for the actual backup target, but that hardware can be anything that the operating system sees. We don't write our own drivers. You don't have to wait for us to come out with some specific driver or update, and you don't have to worry if we support the hardware, tape drive, disk drive that you're using. We talk directly to the operating system. Anything the operating system sees, whether it be a tape drive, a SAN attached device, even a USB drive, you can plug that in and it can be a backup location for you. We don't recommend it, so we kind of slow, but it can be something if you have to have some specific needs in the spur of the moment. A quick network review as far as some of the stuff we do, and we'll get into a lot more details in these. Just the SEP server itself is a single console. That single console can manage the entire environment, can talk to all of your devices across the network, and can manage those backup targets. So we have the SEP server, number 1. Number 5, we have the remote device server. This is a remote site. You have file servers at that remote site. In this case, we have a slow LAN link, probably a T1. You don't want to have to copy all of your file and email services back up to the SEP server. So you're going to want to have some way of optimizing the performance and keeping that traffic at that remote site. So we can manage a remote device server. All it does is look like additional backup storage for the SEP sesam server. You just set up a site. The agents then point to that SEP sesam server. All that traffic stays remote. And we then use what are called migration schedules, and you can migrate that remote data back to the local site. You can go local to a remote site to get DR. You can also migrate from a media type to a different media type on these migration schedules, whether it's disk to disk, disk to tape, or a tape medium like LTO4 to LTO5, and it validates every single bit of data. So you can feel confident that all that data is valid that has been migrated from one media to the next media. The system itself, we use what we call parallel data streams, and you're going to have other folks talk to you about parallel data streams and what parallel data streams they have. What we do, we definitely have parallel data streams to a single server. So if you have a Windows server you're backing up, and we can do multiple streams to that server, but we can actually launch multiple data streams to multiple servers simultaneously. So you can get multiple throughput from all the servers at the same time, which gives you additional throughput because you've got the throughput from each of your devices back to your master server. But above and beyond that, just the way we write data as we place it back on the storage, whether it be disk or tape, is we drop it and manage the index, and we write it so much faster than what anybody else out there is doing. You get a huge increase in performance. Lon, I know you have some definite examples you can talk about. Why don't you go into something we've done recently and give some people an idea of what they can get for performance.
Well, it doesn't work if you're on mute and you're trying to talk. We have worked with quite a few folks recently, and the numbers really just keep getting higher as far as the performance levels we're seeing and the backup window shrinking. It's really cool because, a couple years ago, I guess, we tell people it was, you could expect to see about a 30 to usually 60 to 80% increase in speed when you switched from another backup software to SEP. And recently, those numbers have just been getting a lot higher. The example that I probably give most often now is a customer that we had who makes, it's SRAM, they make satellites for the European Space Agency, and their backups, for a full backup, it was taking them 4 days to complete their backups. And now, using SEP, their backups are down to under 4 hours. And they didn't do any hardware upgrades. They didn't bond any Ethernet ports. They didn't change any switches. They didn't increase their bandwidth. I mean, they really did nothing except change their backup software, and they enabled our multi-stream technology, so they were using 16 streams of data to simultaneously write to a tape library. And the other thing that was cool was when their backups were taking 4 days, they weren't even backing up all of their information. They were backing up about 80% of their data, and they left 20% out of the backup rotation just because they didn't have enough time for it, obviously. So once they started seeing those speeds, they added that additional 20% back into the mix, and their backup still stayed under 4 hours. So yes, it is a drastic case. I think it's like 97 or 98% reduction in backup time. But on a very consistent basis, we're seeing 60 to 90%. Very, very common. A lot of folks that we come across are, say for example, they're using Backup Exec. Maybe they have 2 backup servers that are handling all their backups, and it's taking, about 20 hours to complete a full backup. We're able to switch them over to 1 backup server and still shrink their backup window, probably realistically down to about 12 hours for a backup like that. So, it obviously depends on the hardware that's in place. It depends on the switches, the connections, all that kind of stuff, because those are, obviously bottlenecks. But we're really seeing a huge increase in performance, and the multi-streaming is just amazing. How fast it can enable the backups. And something that's really cool is not only does that multi-streaming work on the backups, but when you go to do a restore, you can now leverage that multi-streaming to be an effect on the restores as well. And, I don't know how many of you who are on right now have done restores. I would imagine every single one of you at one point or another. And you can probably attest to the fact that, your backups may be quick, but the restores are usually slow. And so this is, something we've been focusing on, making that process streamlined as well, so that, if you are in a down situation, you can be back up and running as quickly as possible.
So we were able to take that client, basically change nothing in their environment. All we did was install SEP, and they just got a 97% performance increase, right?
Yeah, and I mean, seriously, it happens, like I said, it's been happening more and more. A lot of our more recent customers are getting 70, 80, 90% right out of the box, and it's very common now. I mean, I used to be hesitant before to tell people, yeah, we can promise you a certain percent, and now, I mean, I'm just very, very confident saying, yeah, we will definitely reduce your backup window by a lot.
Now, didn't we have some test requirements to go through with that client or another client here recently where they had to have a certain number of files that got backed up and we just blew all the competition out of the water?
Yeah. It was a different customer. It was actually a request for proposal. They had issued they were about to issue an RFP, but you had to qualify to be included in the RFP. So the requirements were to back up 8 million files in under 4 hours. So we set up our environment and everything. It was on their hardware, and we did the test. And we actually, I think we came in, and I'm not 100% on the exact number, but I'm 99% sure it was either 76 million or 78 million. I'm not sure which one, but the requirement was 8, and we came in between 75 and 80. And I think the closest competitor came in at like 11.5 million. So in that situation, we were at least 7 times faster than our competition. So.
Yep, and that's all from the data streams and how we write the software when we grab the data back. So it's definitely very good technology and can help a lot with improving performance and capabilities for your backups and your backup and restore window.
And the one thing I'd like to point out too is, it's different in every environment. So what I would recommend to anyone who's, on the call and not using SEP already, test it. Put it in your environment and see what kind of speeds you get, I mean, we can sit here all day long and say, hey, this is the greatest product in the world and it's super fast and all that, but until you see it in your environment, you're not going to know what speeds you're going to get, really, So we have a 30-day trial version. Download it or contact us. We're definitely willing to help you get everything up and running and help you get everything optimized in a test environment and run it and really see what you guys get, because that's going to be the defining moment is, what you get in your environment and how well it really works for you. So that would be my recommendation.
Exactly. That's a great point. Bare metal. And this is something that's definitely very nice. With the bare metal, we offer a complete bare metal backup. What that means is you're basically taking an image of the system. So it takes the entire system, everything the way it is and set up, makes a backup, allows you to turn your restores into minutes instead of hours, because when you go to do your restore, you don't have to put an OS or an agent or anything else on there. You boot up from a CD, it goes and talks to your backup server and restores that server back to its original state exactly as it was. Now, that's great, but what if you have a 10-year-old server and that server dies and you need to get that server back? So if you buy a new server, unless you spend 2 days on some sort of Craigslist trying to find an old device, you're probably going to have to buy a new server that's not going to have the same hardware. Well, it doesn't matter to us. You put in the new server, and you go ahead and you boot off it. There's a hardware wizard that goes through, finds your new hardware, you find your drivers, updates your operating system, your HAL, all your information, and then brings your system up. So definitely can save you time, especially if you have old hardware and you're trying to get that up to date, and you just need some way of managing that. So this is awesome. Not only can you do this from old to new hardware, you can use it to go from a physical box to a virtual box, or going from virtual back to physical. So if you have something that you virtualize, you need to get it back onto a physical box, you're doing some testing with it, whatever, and the vendor just says, oh, well, you're having that error because you're virtual. We don't support that. Boom, you can move it back to a physical box, and they can do their testing or whatever they need to do. So it's pretty nice to be able to have that flexibility. Our single console, we talked about this. It doesn't matter where your remote device servers are, where your agents are, where anything is on the environment. We manage it all from one console. It's not a separate license. There's no additional software to buy. That console comes with it, and that is what is used to manage the environment. The Java-based GUI, which means that it doesn't matter if you're running it on Linux or Windows, you have that same GUI, same look and feel on both systems. You're not going to have to learn something new between the two. So it makes it very easy to move between the two and manage that. As far as where you back your stuff up to, we talked about the fact if you have a SAN, all you need to do is have a remote device server or your custom server connected to the SAN, and you're able to use that as a target and back up to it. That, in essence, can give you LAN-free backups. You can manage your backups, your agents, and be able to grab data from your device and actually back it up to that target if it's a SAN-attached tape drive, and keep all your traffic off your network so it's all LAN-free and optimizing the performance of that. In a virtual environment, we support Citrix, Zen Server. We support VMware's ESX, ESXi. We support Microsoft Hyper-V. We support open source Zen. We support other virtualization platforms. I mean, this is a partial list. Definitely talk to us about what your needs are and where it's at. When you're on Zen, we can do hot and warm modules. What that means is with a hot module, all it does is grab a snapshot, back that system up. If you're using Zen, you may have realized that when you do that restore, that it changes the MAC and the system ID, and Windows in turn drops your license and makes you relicense that box. Well, we also can do a warm backup, which grabs the memory state during the backup and allows us to maintain that information so you don't have that activation loss. Nobody else is doing that right now, so we definitely take care of that problem for you. Agentless, which means all we do is we talk to the API. When you're setting up the client, you just authenticate. You don't have to install an agent on any of the devices. Same for VMware. No agent required. So it makes it really quick to deploy, get set up, go out, start using this, and have it talk to all the devices on the network. We can talk directly to your ESX host with VMware. We can go through a VCP proxy and help manage that whole process. Or we can talk directly with the ADP, so you don't even have to have the VCP proxy in place. So really flexible, allows you to manage that. We talk Hyper-V. We get file consistency with DSS, whether it's with Hyper-V or VMware or Zen Server. All of the virtualization tools that you install on there, they have a VSS component. We talk to that VSS component to quiesce those files and give you a valid backup of that information that's on the server. When we're doing the backup, we're taking the snapshot, we mount that, and go ahead and back up that system. Your users don't even realize the backup's taking place from that right there. So that backup window isn't affecting them being up. They can still log into the box, make changes, do what they need to do. When it's done, it recommits that data and removes that snapshot. So you don't have to go back and manually manage that. Even if the backup fails for some reason, it still manages that snapshot and removes it for you. Definitely very nice feature. When we're talking to a virtual server cluster, we can talk to the entire cluster at once. If you're talking vCenter, we can talk to vCenter, authenticate to your HA cluster. If you're talking Zen Server, we can talk to that pool. We talk to the master server, and we see all of your hosts, which means that we can now see all of the guests because they're, of course, attached to the host. So we can identify a guest wherever it is on any of the servers, and we isolate that traffic from that guest to the host and back that up. So it's isolated traffic that can then get backed up and streamlined. When you go to restore it, it doesn't matter if you want to restore it to that same host. If you want to restore it to a different host, you can point it to a new host, restore that information. It's now up and going. If that host isn't part of the same pool, isn't even in the same building, it doesn't matter to us. We don't care. You can use this, do a restore, and you can even schedule a backup and a restore continuously so that you get a synchronized system from a point in time when you're doing your backups and restores to keep a hot DR site available to you. So there's some options that you can do here which make things really flexible and give you some capabilities that you may not have with just your standard clustered environment that you're running for virtualization. We talk Oracle, and we can manage the database, table space, file level backups. We can handle the XML archiving, and we have a wizard-based configuration. Our wizard works directly with RMAN, so as your Oracle version changes, gets updated, that RMAN automatically gets updated as part of Oracle. We talk directly to it. That's what we're doing calls to do the backups. So you can always rest assured that your backup capabilities are at the same version level and have the same function as far as what your Oracle is at, because that RMAN version is always going to stay the same with, or going to maintain the same level that your Oracle version is at. In an Exchange environment, we can talk to all versions of Exchange, and we understand how LCR, CCR, SCR clusters work in 2007, a DAG cluster in 2010. You point us to the environment. We can grab the backup. Backups of Exchange are great. When you go to do a restore, a lot of software requires that you set up a recovery database. Well, we can support the recovery database. It's just a lot of extra work if you don't want to go through it. We also can go through a direct DB instance and restore that database directly back to the box. We can go to a mailbox instance or even a single message instance. If you have somebody that's deleted a message, you need to get that message back, boom. You can select it and do a restore. SQL, we talk to SQL. We are VSS aware, so we can talk to the operating system and manage that SQL state and grab the backup. We can get that point-in-time restore with the database and your log files. When you go to do a restore, we can do a cross-restore of the database into another instance, so you can actually look at it on a separate box and determine what is wrong, what got changed, who deleted what, or just grab things and put them back so you can have something without taking down your production area. And we can manage your logs, so we can manage the logs during the backups with or without truncate options. We are a very close partner with SAP. If you are running SAP in your environment, definitely talk to us. We can get you a lot more information. We've been working with them for over 15 years and have the highest level of certification of any third-party vendor. So get information from us. Here's some information as far as what we support, but if you want more, definitely talk to us. And in a Novell environment, again, we're agentless. Novell has TSAs available, so we go out and we talk to the TSAs. We don't install agents on all the Novell servers. We don't care what Novell version you are. You can have a network server. You can have an OES box. And what makes this nice is you can use this to actually even migrate from the latest one we just were talking with somebody about, is just bringing their network 4.1 box up to OES 11. And instead of going from 4 to 5, 5 to 6, and then doing the server consolidation utility, they can just do a backup and restore onto the new NSS volumes. And we'll actually go through that with Network 6.5 to OES 11 in a live demo here in a while. So you'll get to see how that works, and you get to see the fact we just don't install any agents on the Novell servers. We have a data mover, and we'll talk about that here in a moment, and the backup server. And other than that, we just talk to the TSAs in the environment. The only requirement we have is that you have a valid SLP configuration in the environment. But if you have several servers, you're going to have SLP working anyway. So it's pretty clean and easy to set up. The data mover principle is that our data mover actually talks to SMITR. So SMITR is sitting there and listening for information. We go and make the request. Then as long as you have the correct TSA loaded, TSA FS, TSA CW, TSA IF, TSA NDS, we can then talk to that Novell service, grab the information. Of course, it gets created based on the TSA and what it does to that service, and we grab that data and back it up. So we're talking directly to the agent that Novell has written for the software. What that means is that we're always up to date. We're always at the same version. We can always work with the operating system you're talking to there, and it keeps us completely up to date and fully supports the entire Novell environment, which you're not going to find with other software vendors. When they update their software, they have to write a new agent. We just write how we talk to the TSA, so it's wonderful. We can talk to the backup cluster, and if anybody's running a cluster, I'm sure that you've run into some of the issues on how clusters work when you're trying to talk with some other software. Well, since we're talking to the TSA, it understands those objects, and it understands how those different nodes work and what we're supposed to talk to. So we can then talk to the group-wise post office that's been clustered, or the iPrint server, or iFolder resource. So that is all there. When you go to back it up, you actually see the cluster pool and you see the object. So you can select the object or the resources that you're wanting to back up just directly from the GUI. This is a screenshot from our GUI. So this is what it looks like when you're looking at those objects in a cluster. Now there's several ways you can set up the cluster. These things are are good to keep in mind based on how your environment is and what you're wanting to use for your backup server. You can use one server. That one server can be a SEP sesam server, and the data mover can be on that server. The data mover does need to be on an OES Linux server, so you have to have OES Linux somewhere for your data mover. It can either be one of your file servers that are running, or you can set it up specifically for your backup server. In this case, we have a backup server and the data mover all together. Of course, we have backup storage that we're talking to, and all the traffic is going across the network because we're talking to the TSAs for every single one. We have the TSA FS, TSA QW, TSA IF, all loaded on those servers, and we make those calls directly. Now, let's say you wanted to have your backup server be a Windows box for some reason, and you need to have that there because that's where your backup storage is at and what you want to back up. We don't care. You just install this on Windows, and that's your backup server. For your data mover, you still have to have an OES box somewhere. So you'll bring up your OES box, install the data mover, and just identify that when you're setting up your backup. This is where my data mover is. And you'll see that in the live demo that we define the data mover and we define authentication from the data mover. If you don't want to have traffic going across the network all the time, we, of course, can do LAN-free backup, remove the backup traffic from the main network. You get performance advantages based on your LAN performance or iSCSI network on the back end, how you're talking to your storage. And this can all be done because you're going to have shared storage on your cluster anyway. So if you have multiple pieces of shared storage, then you can back up your main storage to your backup storage, then you can actually take your network traffic off of your LAN and make that all happen directly back over to your backup storage. So this is another solution. Of course, our SEP sesam server doesn't matter. It can be Windows or Linux at this point because you're going to put the data movers on your cluster nodes. So your cluster nodes are going to sit there running the data mover, talking to those clustered objects, and then identifying the traffic where it goes to for your storage. So all your backup data is now off your LAN. So you have a LAN-free backup. Now, these are all great bits of information. I know we went through a lot of details here. We're going to open this up for questions. If you guys have questions, please bring them out now, and we'll be walking into an actual live demo here in a moment. So we have had some questions. It looks like Lanai's been busy answering them. Is there anything else that we want to talk about live?
All right. Yeah, I'm just going to go through some of these questions real quick. And then, Shane, if you want to just go ahead and switch over to the live part and start getting that ready. One of the first question we had was, will the session be recorded? And the answer is yes, we are recording the session. It will be available. We'll post it online, and we'll send out a link to everybody so that you guys can access it at your leisure. Another question we had was, can you back up from one OS and restore to another, for example, Windows to Linux? And the answer is yes. You can definitely do that. And Shana, we're going to be showing that as part of the demo, aren't we?
We will not from Windows to Linux. We're actually going from NetWare to Linux. The only thing I would caveat with that is you're not going to grab NSX rights and be able to restore them as SIP share rights, because obviously it's a completely different formatted write solution. The files will be there, not an issue at all. But you just will miss some of the information that drives that file system specific. So the files, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, and as far as files go, for doing the restore, when you open our restore wizard, you have the option to select, do you want to restore it to the same location? Do you want to restore it to a different location? Do you want to keep the same tree structure? Do you want to, put it somewhere completely different? And so it gives you quite a few options. Some of the other restore options that you have are to set automatic restores that just automatically happen at whatever times are necessary. People use that feature to have warm standbys. So if they want to have a warm standby of a certain database or of a certain server, then they can actually have that up and running so that if one does go down, they can switch over to the other one or have files just to pull from and restore from at any point quickly. So there's quite a bit of features and functionalities in there that you can leverage as well. The next question is, can the data mover be virtual? And the answer to that is yes. We have a lot of customers who configure things that way. Basically, all we need in the mix as far as a data mover goes to support NetWare is, preferably a SLUS 11 box somewhere in the mix, and it can be physical or virtual. Either one is absolutely fine. All right. Next question. Will your demo show migration from NetWare to OES? Yes, it will.
Yeah, we're going NetWare 6.5.8 to OES 11. So yeah.
Yep. And I'm sure all of you already know, but that's the newest version of OES, which, as Shane mentioned, we supported as soon as it was out of the box because we don't have to write anything special for it. We communicate directly with the TSAs. We do all of our backups and restores natively. So as soon as Novell comes out with new products, they are generally instantly supported by us. And on that note, a lot of folks, a lot of backup companies are shying away from Novell, end-of-lifing NetWare. A lot of the backup companies now, they can only be installed on Windows. You can no longer install the main console on Linux. So as far as we know from all the research we've done, to this day, we are the only backup solution that in our current version fully supports all Novell products, including old legacy NetWare, back to NetWare 4 and past, NetWare clusters, all Vibe on-prem, all those, all those solutions are fully supported by our backup software. One of the next questions, when restoring files to different servers, how are the writes handled? That was from Alan. We just answered that, so hopefully we gave you a thorough answer for that already.
And we're actually going to show you the writes. Obviously, if it's NSS writes, it's going to restore those NSS writes back to an NSS volume, and we're going to test and make sure that happens in our live demo. So.
Perfect. So hopefully that answers that for you, Alan. Norman asked, off-site storage design, can you cover that? Yeah, we definitely have quite a few capabilities for remote locations and backing up off-site. So we have what we call a remote device server, and what that does is we can put that at outlying locations from the main data center, and that enables the user to back up information to attach storage on-site at those individual locations. And then at that point, when they have that backup, and this is kind of best practices, how we'll recommend doing it. We recommend backing up to on-site storage. You don't necessarily have to. You could bring that directly across the wire. But to enable the quickest restores possible for each location, we would recommend, putting on-site storage at each location, doing a full backup to those. And then if you'd like, you can, schedule a migration and bring that data across the wire. You can rotate it between different locations. So you could have multiple sets of the same data at, multiple geographic locations. There's some cloud options where you can back up to the cloud, and have your data in multiple locations for security or for, disaster recovery purposes or whatever you choose. So there's really quite a few options with that. I would say if you have, specific instances or specific questions, contact us, and we can, go over those specific instances more in depth and give you a better idea of how that would look. All right. Let's see, a couple more questions here real quick. Okay. Sorry, guys. This is the questions don't exactly come in order, so I just want to make sure that I'm answering all of them here. Okay. Group-wise restore. How do you identify an individual item rather than having to do a full restore of the entire message store to a different data store? Basically, you would have to restore the entire post office and pull individual emails out from that. And you know, that's basically the same with all the technology out there that's available to do that. What we recommend doing, and kind of our best practice to make that as quick and painless as possible, is to have scheduled restores of that group-wise database so that you have a warm standby, and if you need to pull an email out of there at any time, you can just go directly in there and restore it. So that's kind of the way that we circumvent that. Moving forward, we are taking a look at some expanded capabilities and some expanded features. And correct me if I'm wrong, Shane, but I think that's pretty much how we handle it now.
And what we do is we're talking directly to the TSA that talks to the post office. So the TSA is quiescing the post office, but the TSA, Novell TSA, does not talk to the individual message databases. It talks to the entire post office. So that's why we grab the entire post office right now. And since that's what we're doing, is talking to the TSA, that's where our limitation currently is.
Perfect. All right. Any other questions before we get started with the demo? All right. There's a couple other questions that came in, just if I can send people some information and stuff like that, and I'll answer those questions individually. But let's go ahead and get started with the next part of the demo, and we can go from there. We'll have another Q&A session at the end, so please definitely get some questions ready for the end as we go through this, and we'll go through another Q&A.
And at this point in time, I'm assuming everybody can see my cool virtual sessions up and running. If anybody's having any trouble seeing any of this, obviously speak up, raise your hand, type a question, or just enter something in chat so we can make sure that it's easy enough for everybody to read and follow along, or just ask me to slow down. On our server, this is an OES SP2 or SP3, OES SP3 server that we have set up for our backup server. We're going to actually make this our backup server, and it's going to be our data mover. We're going to put both of them on here. Also in our environment.
Hey, Shane, I just want to interrupt you real quick. I can't see your screen, and it looks like a couple other folks can as well.
Okay. Well, then let's fix that.
Yeah, it looks like a black screen.
Well, it's probably black with black lettering, so it makes it harder. No, give me a moment.
That's like trying to talk when you're on mute.
Yeah.
Between the two of us, we could join the circus.
Oh, I think they probably want us to.
All right. Bear with us for 2 seconds, folks. We'll get you a screen that you can actually see in a second.
So I just moved back to the PowerPoint. Can we see the PowerPoint, or is that also black?
I still got a black screen, personally.
Okay, let me.
And while we're doing this, I know that we are going to have a recorded demo, but we do encourage you guys to stay on for a couple minutes while we get this going. We're going to be doing a couple giveaways at the end, and get you a chance to win a little gift certificate towards the end. I don't know if I think that was included in the email we sent out, but we're going to be doing 2 $25 gift cards for Amazon, and it's our way to bribe you guys to all stay on for the entire demo. So I still got a black screen, Shane.
Okay, let me change to a full screen. And
There we go.
We can see the whole window now.
Yeah, I can see your entire screen.
Which is fine. And let me just see if I can make this more focused so it looks bigger. Nope, it doesn't want it to be focused. So nope, we'll just go here. All right, so everybody can see the screen up and running now. I'm guessing. Cool. Yep. All right, on our OES to SP3 server, we already have our SEP sesam server and Novell client downloaded. So with those downloaded, it saves us a little bit of time, but just looking at the size of the files, and we're looking at a 48 meg and a 5 meg file, so they're really fast to download. They only take a couple minutes in general. We have Java downloaded here, and Java's been installed, so we have Java running. If you don't have Java on the server, you will need to install Java first, and Java only takes a moment to download and install. I'm sure most people have done that in a lot of environments already. But let's go ahead and run an install. So let's do an RPM, VH, and we're going to install the server. So we'll go ahead and let that run. Now, this is decompressing the file, so the first thing it's going to do is unpack it. Next thing it's going to do is install our SQL database, set up the instance, install the Sesam GUI, install the information to talk to the storage, and then it's going to start creating a data store so we have some place just for a test backup and restore. It will then turn around, run a test backup and a test restore. And when the GUI first launches, we will see that that did get run, and we'll be able to tell if it was successful or not. After it's done doing its test, it will create a schedule that is set up to run every day to back up itself. So we'll get a backup of the database continuously from this schedule that it runs, and then it will turn around and launch the GUI. So it'll actually automatically launch it. We'll be able to see the GUI and see what it did based on the status windows that come up in the bottom left-hand corner. So launch the GUI, bottom left-hand corner says configuration of drives completed, restore completed successfully, and the backup completed successfully. So it did its test. We see that the tests work. Let's just go to the job state really quick and look at the backups. And we can see they're all successful. So this is what it did just during the install. Pretty quick install, up and ready to go. What we need now is a data mover. So we've installed the server. We need the data mover. Data mover is a lot faster to install. So again, same command. And we need a minus there. And boom, data mover is ready. So we now have a data mover in our environment. We have a Sesam server. I'm going to go ahead and set up a backup. So if we go to tasks by client, we can see that we have a site. And this is where you can create multiple sites. So if you had a remote site, you can actually create another site and then isolate your traffic and say that you have all of your clients in that site, and then you have your remote device server there, so then you just target those, and that's how you set up and manage your storage and your traffic. Here we want to actually do a new client. This new client is going to be our network box. We need to back up the network server. So the network server is network 658-up, and we're going to call it network, which is good. And we have to define access. Since we're talking to the TSAs, we actually want to log in directly to the TSA. So we're going to log in as admin. We recommend you set up a backup user if you're not in a test environment, and give it a password. And define the data mover. Well, the data mover itself is going to be our backup server. That's what we installed the data mover on. And we say, OK. It'll go out, validate that it can talk to it, and it's asked if we want to create a new job. So let's say yes. By default, it's going to come up and say, hey, we're talking to NSS. We're not going to fill out any of the information. We're going to let it auto-populate it. So we just are going to hit the Browse button and then go and browse the services. We can see that, hey, there are Novell services, that there is file system items, and we're going to back up all one. Now, let's set this up, and let's just go check a couple things on vol1. So we know there's a vol1 there, but what's on it, what rights are set up, let's verify with that. So we're going to go to our Windows server, and this is a 2003 server that has a Novell client on it. We're going to go ahead and log in, and then make sure we map drive. So I'll map network drive, and our network server, we're going to browse. Do we have a connection? Yes, we do. No, we don't. Actually, that's the wrong server. Let's go connect to the right server. And we'll go to resources, network 658, vol1. Okay, we're going to map that to N, and let's go see what's on there. On the N drive, we have two directories. We've got a data directory, and we've got a home directory. In home, we've got some users. So let's just look at one of the users, and we'll look at the properties. If we look at Novell rights, that user has full rights to his directory. Okay, so we have some rights defined. We have some files in that user's directory. That's good. And let's just look at data. We have a couple directories or a directory and some files in there. What rights do we have on there? We have a group called data, and we have them having full rights to that. So we've got a directory with a group defined to it and home directories with user-specific rights. So we have files there that we're going to be backing up. Ultimately, we're going to want to do a restore to the OES 11 box. So let's map a drive. And we're just going to make that O. We will browse to that server, OES 11. And let's put that on vol1. So if we look at vol1, currently it has nothing on it, just some hidden directories, hidden information. So we're not going to worry about, we want to get this information over there, though. So let's go back to our backup server. We now have this available for a backup. Let's go ahead and right-click. We'll do an immediate start, and we're going to just let it back up to the test media pool that it had set up, and we have a test pool and step 3, and we're going to go ahead and just say OK, and let it do an immediate start. Now, pretty small. We don't have a lot of files, but we can see that, hey, we get an active job. And if we have enough information, when we go to the performance window, we'll actually be able to see some information here. Two things. On the side, left side, we actually see individual servers and the performance of each server. On the right side, we get to see overall throughput of everything that's running on the server. Now, I'm thinking this is already done since it is pretty small. I'm going to refresh this. And if we had enough info, we actually get to see the throughput go through. But again, it goes really quick with just a couple files on there. Just since we only had 24 megs there, we got about 90 gig throughput. Let's go ahead and go back, and we need to set up another client. We have our network box. We need to do a restore. So let's create a new client, and this is going to be our OES 11 server. And we're going to tell it its network because, of course, we're wanting to back up to this or do the restore with the TSAs, and we'll do the same thing. If I set enough authentication directly to the TSAs, we're going to choose the same backup server as the data mover, and we will say OK. Now, it's going to say, hey, do we want to create a backup job? Well, no, we don't have anything there. So we're not going to create a backup job for that. But what we will do is let's do a restore. New restore task. Okay, we only have one backup we've done. So it's going to say, hey, you've got one task. Well, we've got the test also. But we're going to choose the backup we just ran. Say next. If we had run multiple copies of this, so it's been running for the last year, we'll see as many copies kept here is what we define for our purge period. So if we say 7 instances, we would see all 7 instances before it gets purged. So we're going to select the one instance we have, say next, choose that volume, because we're going to restore everything that's on it, and say next. And we're going to change where we restore to. Our target node currently is 658. We're going to change that to 11. And our target, we want to change to the new target on that server. So if we have authentication working, we should be able to get back to the NSS volume. When we look at an OES Linux server, we actually see the breakdown of the directories in Linux before we get to see our NSS volume. So it looks a little different than NetWare, but as you can tell, once you get to the volume object looks the same. We're going to say OK. We're going to say don't write over existing files. We can change this to create new version or to overwrite. In this case, there's nothing on it. We just looked at it. And we're going to start it. So an immediate restore just started. And we can go to our restore window and see similar information. So again, it's active. We can, now this button at the top that I'm clicking is actually the refresh button. Since we are running Java, we do have to tell it to refresh or we force a refresh on it. Successful? Let's go take a look. Here is our map drive for O. Let's refresh this. Oh, we now have data and home. So if we look, there's a direct file there too. Let's go ahead and verify. Do we have rights? Properties, network rights. The user has rights to his information. Let's go ahead and go to data and look at the properties of the data directory. Does that group have rights? And it does. So we were able to back it up from NetWare, restore it to OES Linux, and maintain the files, maintain the rights. At this point, all we would have to do is go in and change our login script, and we would now be pointing to the new server for the drive, and we just migrated from NetWare to OES Linux with all of our file rights. I know it looks really fast and easy. We went from nothing being installed to doing a backup and a restore from 2 different operating systems after installing the server. And that really is how optimized and easy it is to manage this. What questions do you guys have, or what do you see that you want to know more about? And I'll let you.
One thing I'd just like to highlight too is, like Shane said, we went from not having anything installed to having something migrated in what, 20 minutes? That's pretty good, because I know some of our competition is, from the backup software side, it takes 2 days just to install the software itself before you even install the clients and get everything up and running and everything. I know there's quite a bit of configuration, so it's definitely an advantage for you folks. So we have a question from Norman. It says, do all of the users and groups have to be set up in advance on the OES 11 server?
Then that's a no. Obviously, your users and groups are set up in eDirectory. So when I installed OES, all I did was make it part of that directory. So it's just a member of, it's not really a member, but obviously it's installed in eDirectory. And those users and groups are the same users that were there. It's definitely, in this case, we only have 3 servers, so every server is running a replica. It does not have to run a replica. You just have to install it into eDirectory, and of course that's where NSS gets its information for its rights and identifies the users.
Okay, any other questions? Going once. There we go. All right. Alan asked, how does the backup server distinguish between one NetWare server from another NetWare server?
And that's completely defined by the client. So when we set up or a new client, we actually create that client object, and it knows, hey, this is the new server. So when we were doing the restore, we changed to a new target, and that target changed from NetWare 6.5 to OES 11. So I can just show that window again. If any other questions are coming up while I'm doing this, definitely don't hesitate to point them out. But we were just, this is the object that we had backed up, and when we went to do the restore, we changed the target. So it sees the NetWare 6.5, the OES 11, and the OES 2 server, all 3 of them, and I identified OES 11 as our target.
Okay, folks, other questions? All right. How does the backup server? Oops, sorry. Never mind. Wrong question. Popped up again. Okay, guys. Any other questions? We're going to do a quick giveaway here too. So let's get some ground rules in place for the giveaway. We are going to ask a couple questions, and the first people to answer them correctly will be the winners. So I'll give you guys a minute. We got another question that came in, and so I'll go over that. Give you guys all a minute to find the part on your GoToWebinar console that says questions. That's where you guys are going to have to type in the answer. So give you guys a second to open that up and find that and get ready to answer. And once again, the first people who answer correctly will be the winners. We'll have 2 questions for you, 2 Amazon gift certificates for 25 bucks. And once we get the winners, we will mail those to you as well. So we'll tell you who the winners are, and then if you can type in a physical mailing address in that same panel for us, the 2 winners, then we can go ahead and get those sent out to you. The other question that we had was, can I back up from physical NetWare to virtual NetWare? And the answer to that is yes. You know, for all of the features and functionalities that you guys saw today, it really doesn't matter to us if it's physical or virtual. The only difference is that we would have some expanded capabilities on the virtual side. So, you know, we do have modules for VMware, for Citrix, and for Hyper-V. So if they were virtual, you'd also be able to get image level backups directly through the APIs of the virtual technology. So it would just be, you know, some additional functionality that you'd have if any of these servers were virtual. Well, and these servers are virtual, aren't they, Shane?
Yeah, we're running all virtual for everything, but it doesn't matter. It definitely works the same if it was physical or in combination, so not an issue.
Yeah, it really doesn't make a difference. So that's the overall answer. But we do have some pretty cool, you know, features and functionalities with some of the virtual technology as well. Next question just came in. Do you require basic one-to-one disk storage capacity for backup purposes?
And I don't know if I fully understand the concept of that question, but the answer in general would be no. You can actually create multiple data stores, and you can set up those data stores with different expiration time frames and how your backups are run. So it can go to multiple locations, and it can all be managed from the same console. So if that's the question as far as can you back this up to multiple locations, yeah, we can handle that just fine.
And also we can, you know, we can do some compression as well, so that it's not, you know, direct. A follow-up to that was if you have 50 gigabytes of data, do you require 50 gigabytes of storage for that backup?
So obviously with compression, no, that's not required. Obviously best practice is to have that available. So we don't require for the backup. When you're doing a restore, I think as you're well aware, when you restore data, even if it was compressed before, a new file as it gets written is not compressed, so you would need that space for a restore on the server.
You know, the one thing I will say too is we do have some deduplication options as well. You know, and that's obviously gonna change those parameters a little bit as well. So if those are questions that you'd like to get a little more in depth, please do reach out to us, and we can go over those specifically with you. Okay, almost ready for the drawing. Are there any other questions before we get started? All right. One other question was, can you demonstrate a server recovery?
And we can demonstrate a server recovery with a couple options there. And the easiest is bare metal, and we can definitely do a bare metal demo at some point. And we may even have a bare metal webinar coming up. Obviously, our time is getting short today, So to completely recover the server at this moment is not realistic, but we definitely can either do a personal demo for you or help you with getting the software working in your environment for you to do a test yourself and obviously get to see how the performance works in your environment and how the interface works, and you can use it yourself, or we can do a demo in our environment with just another call.
Perfect. And one of the questions we had before was the picture on your desktop Independence Pass in Colorado? And the answer to that is no. It was, Shane, that was San Juan Mountains. Is that right?
It is in the San Juans. This is called Ice Lake, and it's a very steep but not extremely long hike off the road there, and but it's a very nice area, and it was able to get a great shot, obviously.
And I don't know if all you guys know, not only is Shane a computer master, but he's also the Chuck Norris of mountain climbing. So just a little tidbit. But all right, we're going to go ahead with the drawing here. So Shane, do you have a couple? You want to ask a question to the audience? I would imagine everybody's ready by now. First correct answer in wins.
The first question is, if we're going to back up our Novell NetWare server, do we have to install an agent on it before we can do a backup?
Okay, looks like we have a bunch of answers. Hold on, let me figure out exactly who was first here. Okay. All right, Valerie is the first person in. She said no agent. Valerie, congratulations. You have a $25 gift certificate coming your way. If you can give us your mailing address, please. Type it in. We will get that out to you today or tomorrow. All right, next question, everybody. Valerie, unfortunately, you are no longer qualified. We're going to give everybody a chance. So, next question, we got a chance.
He seemed to be a fast typer. So, okay. So the next question is, okay, we don't need an agent. Obviously, we need to be able to talk to that server in some fashion. What are we using to talk to that server since we don't install an agent?
All right. Again, give me 1 second. We got a bunch of responses here.
TSA is the correct answer.
So, correct answer is TSAs. And the first person with lightning quick fingers was Alan. Alan, you are the winner. Congratulations. If you can type in a physical mailing address where you would like this mailed, we will get that out to you as well. So any other questions, folks, before we jump off here? I'll give you another quick second just to type anything in. I would encourage you guys to, reach out to us with other questions. You can email Shane or myself. You can email info@sepusa.com. Call the main office, however you'd like to get in touch with us. We'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. And if you guys would like to set up a demo and see some of this in your own environment, let us know. We'll be happy to get somebody on with you, Shane or somebody else, and just go over a quick overview, get you up and running, and let you do some testing and really get a feel for, is this something that is going to help you? Is it going to work? Is it going to perform, a lot better than what you guys might currently be doing? So thank you very much all for coming out. We really appreciate your time. We know you guys are busy, and thanks for joining us and sticking with us. We will be announcing our next webinar shortly. We will send out invites to everyone, and we'll also be posting this online, and we'll send that out to you so you guys can reference this as well. So again, thanks for joining us. Shane, thank you very, very much, and we will talk to everybody later. Have a great day.
Thanks, everyone.